Morning, welcome back. Today's topic is transmission pricing. We know that transmission sector is one of the important sector in power systems. Till the last class, we have seen how the electricity prices will be varying and how the electricity prices are highly volatile in nature. And we have confined ourselves to pool markets, isn't it? So we have seen how the cost of electricity in the pool market it varies. Once the customer buys the electricity from the pool market, or when the Genco sells the electricity in the pool market, the next level will be the transportation of this electrical energy or electrical power from the sending end point to receiving end point. And this involves transmission sector. And this transmission of electric power will be done through transmission lines, whether they can be overhead or underground cables. Don't worry, till now we don't have a commercial wireless transmission, so we do have a wired transmission services, either overhead or underground transmission services. And these services are not free in nature. We need to pay for the transmission services for utilizing the transmission lines. So in this video lecture, I will try to give you a simple glimpse about what do you mean by transmission power wheeling and also transmission services and how many types of transmission services are there in markets. So at the start, I will start with power wheeling. So I hope that by the end of this video lecture, you'll be able to describe the concept of power wheeling, and also I hope that you will be able to list the different transmission services which are available and also classify them based upon the time horizon and also list the factors that determine their priority. So let me start with the power wheeling, an introduction to the power wheeling, and we will see different types of wheeling transactions. And next we will move on to transmission services, and later on we move on to priority of transmission services. Now, the very first one, a common term in the transmission sector is power wheeling. Power wheeling is very simple. It is just like wheel. You know that wheel is nothing but it is a base of any vehicle. Let us suppose you do have a vehicle. Wheels. The wheels help in easy transportation of any item, right? So wheeling is just nothing but transportation. So power wheeling is nothing but transportation of power. So it is not a new word, it just comes from the basic English. So in electrical power transmission, wheeling is the transportation of electrical energy from within an electric grid to an electric load outside the grid boundaries. Okay, so within the electric grid to electrical load outside the grid boundaries. This concept is called as wheeling. And there are two types of wheeling services. One is a wheel through, where both generation and load are outside the boundaries of the transmission system. And the other one is wheel outs, where a generation resource will be in the boundary of transmission system, whereas the load will be outside of the transmission system. And it is often referred to as scheduling of energy transfer from one balancing authority. Balancing authority is normally a tie facility and an interconnection system. So it is wheeling is nothing but scheduling of energy transfer from one balancing authority to the other. And wheeling involves transmission of power. So which means that wheeling of electrical energy, it requires a transmission system. And there will be a cost which is associated with the transmission system. So the people who own the transmission system, they will collect the money for providing their services. Okay. So finally, power wheeling is nothing but transmission of electricity. Process of transmission of electricity through the transmission lines. Now, having said this, what is a wheeling utility? Wheeling utility is nothing but a transco. In our terms, you being in the final year, you can easily imagine what a transco is. It is an entity which owns the transmission services, and on these transmission lines, you'll be transmitting the active power and the reactive power both, right? So the transmission of active and reactive power from a seller to buyer is done through transmission network, which is owned by a third party. And that third party is a wheeling utility. In our terms, we do call it as a transco. They carry the power and they should be paid for the service and for also the losses of these transactions. Okay, so most of the times the wheeling parties also they'll be owning their own generations. So whenever you ask a wheeling party a service, automatically they need to reschedule their own generation. So they will charge additionally for that one. And the most important thing in this power wheeling is that how you share the benefits of these transactions and how the prices will be there regarding these transactions. So as an electrical engineer, I'm more concerned about this transmission services. So let us suppose if I'm a Genco or a consumer. So I have bought some electricity from a Genco. Now the next question arises immediately, how to get it transported? Because as a consumer, I don't have any transmission lines. It is just not like a vehicle where I can transport my electricity. So I need some transmission lines which are operated by some third party. So, and the immediate next question comes is, what will be the price of electricity transmission? So the most important thing which happens in the minds of participants, pool participants, is transmission. How to get the transmission. Sometimes the independent system operator looks after all of these, but in bilateral transactions, we need to think about the transmission pricing, etc., etc. So before going deep into the topic, let's have a quick review about the different transmission transactions, or what we call them as wheeling transactions. Okay, so wheeling transactions are basically categorized into 4 categories depending upon the location of the seller and buyer. See, the first one is they are classified based upon the location of seller and the buyer. The very first one is the bulk power wheeling. So in the bulk power wheeling, there will be, let us suppose, there is a Genco and there is a Disco. See, these two are fully developed networks. These are fully regulated utilities, official utilities. And the transmission of power between these two will be on a bulk scale, right? So this type of transmission is called as bulk power wheeling. Okay. On the other hand, if you are going to transfer power from a Genco to a single independent customer, so he may not need the entire transmission services. He may need just only a part of the transmission line to get his power transferred. So this type of transmission is called as, this is customer. It is called as customer wheeling. On the other hand, there might be an captive power plant where, just like our kids college, he's not supplying to the grid, but he's supplying to some local vendors available here. So in this case, there can be 2 types. If he sells to the grid, this is some captive power plant. He is selling to the grid. Okay. This is called a supplier wheeling. He is selling it through a third party. Or he can directly contact a customer, a local customer, and he can supply it. This is called a supplier to customer wheeling. Okay, so these are the different types. See, this requires a bulk amount of transmission lines, whereas these things, it depends upon the amount of power which is being transferred and the locations of injection and also absorption. Now, having said this, now let's take a quick look about transmission services. Transmission services, so far we have seen different types of transactions, how they can be. Now we will see transmission services. There are so many transmission services which are available, and the cost of these transactions, it depends upon the type of transaction. Now, coming to the classification of transmission services, one thing is, a common thing is point-to-point services. In a point-to-point services, there will be fixed delivery point and also fixed receive points. So in this type of thing, the customers, they will ask for only 2 points, and they will just only mention where they want to inject the power and where they can receive the power. So they might need only a single pair of transmission line or a single transmission line. In that case, it is called as a point-to-point service. Sometimes there might be a fully developed utility where it may ask for entire network which you do have. That type of request comes under network service request, where the transmission user, the service is allowing a transmission user a complete access to the system with no specification of the points of delivery or receipt, nor any additional charge for change of schedules. So in that case, it is called as network service. What we are providing is network service. We are giving him the entire network for a fixed duration of time. In a point-to-point service, we just only give him to a single transmission line which connects the starting point and the end point. And if he changes his delivery and the location, we will charge him additionally. Okay, so these two are the different types of transmission services. And also there is one more thing. In point-to-point services, most of the times the customers, the participants of the power pool, they will mention 2 points. One is the GenCo location, the other one is a DISCOM location or the consumer location. So most of the services are point-to-point services. In point-to-point services, again there is a classification that they can be either firm or non-firm. Firm means surely they need to deliver. Non-firm means they can be adjustable. Okay. So again, in firm transactions, they can be long-term for a single day or for a single week or for a single month, or maybe extended up to 1 year or 2 years or up to 10 years also. So long-term or short-term. In non-firm transactions, which can be adjusted, they can be as available based upon the availability, or they can be curtailable, which means that in the place of 500 megawatts, if you don't have that light, you can cut it short to 200 megawatts. That is called as curtailable transaction. And coming to firm transactions, the firm transactions are those transactions which are not subjected to any interruptions. The participants, they won't allow any interruptions, so they need this complete specified delivery from this injection point to delivery point, the same amount of power, and it will be mentioned in megawatts of transmission capacity. So the Transco makes arrangements for enough capacity on the network to meet these firm transactions because they can't be curtailed. And these firm transactions, as mentioned earlier, they can be of two types. One is long term. Most of the times it will be extended up to years, or they can be short term. Sometimes they can be weeks and months. Most of the times less than 1 year. These are firm transactions. The other one is a non-firm transactions. These are subjected to curtailment, as already mentioned. They are as available transactions, or they can be curtailable transactions. So they can be curtailment subjected to if you don't have the transmission lines, or if there is any power outage, or suddenly your system is losing stability. Then in that case, you may be thinking of removing some load, right? And that load, this is the option. If any service is mentioned as curtailable, then you can negotiate with that participant so that his service can be curtailed. Okay, so these are curtailable, and as available transactions, they are basically isolated contracts. They will be, most of the times they will be short-term contracts. If the transmission capacity is there, then you can provide them, or else you may directly give him that is not possible. A curtailable, they can be, these are adjustable transactions. Okay, and both these type of things, they will be having their own separate pricing mechanisms. Firm transactions, non-firm transactions, again in non-firm, as available, curtailable, everything pricing mechanism will be different. And how to decide the priority of the transmission services, and the decisions will be based upon the quantities which are derived from the ATCs, because in the last unit itself we have seen that first of all the transmission people or the ISO, we will decide what is available transmission capability. Next, the transmission providers, they would use the measures related to transfer capability in providing these transmission services. And already, as mentioned, there are two important things. One is recallability of the service, the other one is time horizon of operation. they will think about these two, and based upon that they will decide. The first thing is recallability. It refers to whether a service is recallable or not. So normally when a transmission provider, it is his complete right whether to interrupt all or a part of transmission service for any reason. Whole right of a transmission provider, including the economics also. And the other one is curtailability. It refers to transmission provider's right to totally or partially interrupt transmission service due to prevailing constraints. So most of the times transmission service is curtailable only at times when system reliability is at risk or emergency conditions exist. So based upon these two terms, recallable and curtailable, then you can prioritize your transmission services. See, on the other hand, time horizon. Time horizon is nothing about whether these are present transactions or future transactions or scheduled transactions or non-scheduled transactions. So this is time horizon. In the time horizon scale, we will decide these things. First thing is operating horizon, which means present or current. Both are the same, right? So operating horizon means current, if they are running current, which means the service is required right now. And in this one again there will be two, non-recallable or recallable. Non-recallable means we can't recall them, we need to firm, we call them as firm transactions, right? The other one is a planning horizon, which means in the future, or it may be a reserve thing also. In that one also you will be having non-recallable or recallable. So out of these things, which is the highest priority one based upon your requirement? If you see, non-recallable scheduled service is the first priority one, right? So this will be the first priority, and the last recallable one is in the future, whether it is recallable, then this is a highest last priority. Okay, so the next one is scheduled or reserved. As already mentioned, scheduled means right now operating horizon, reserved means in the future. So what are the factors which are determining the priority of services? One is recallability, time horizon, and time date stamp of the service request. This also refers to time horizon only. Okay, as already mentioned, this is the types of transmission services. So non-recallable services are highest priority, as already mentioned. Yeah, this is, let us suppose at time t1. So first thing is non-recallable scheduled services. Next is, see, these are the different types of services which are available at this particular. These are these different types of things. Okay, so in this one, which one will be the highest priority? Non-recallable scheduled service. This is the priority order. And non-recallable reserve service. Next comes recallable schedule and recallable reserve services. This is for time t1. For time t2 also, if you get the same things, then first time t1 we will do 1, 2, and this is 3, and this is 4. Next comes these things 5, 6, 7, and 8. This is the way how we are going to give the option, and this is the priority order, and this is the curtailment order. Okay, first curtailed things will be these things, last curtailed things will be these things. Okay, so I hope now you have understood now how these transmission services will be there in the market and how they will be prioritized. Okay, so these are the things, outcomes which you might have learned. One is, I hope that now you are able to describe me the concept of power wheeling and what are the different types of wheeling transactions, and I hope that now you are able to list the different transmission services and how they are prioritized. Okay, that's it. And these are the lecture level practice questions. Go through them. Thank you.